First year of the 9-to-1 exams is complete. It was fantastic to see a clear correlation in my data. Hard-working students were rewarded this year. It's great to see so many 9s, but I feel most proud of those students achieving 2 or even 3 grades above their targets. The data clearly shows consistent effort, engaging in class, revising at home, asking questions, trying the Eclair tasks, and making that extra effort to do things like coming to revision sessions all paid off. For me, Results Day is an important day of celebration, but also it provides me with more data and resources. It allows me to reflect and plan for improvement. One thing I do is mark my attempts at all the 4 papers. But I also analyse where my students did well or not so well, and I compare their work against the national picture. I plan how I can improve, and I learn from mistakes. One of the other things I do is read all 4 examiner reports, and this is what this video is about. These reports from each paper summarise and advise. I've picked out the feedback comments, and I hope that they'll help you. At the start of each report there is a summary of what successful students were doing, and we will come back to this later. I want to focus on what the less successful candidates were doing and use the advice the examiner tips throughout all of the reports to help us plan to improve on their mistakes. Looking across all the reports, there seems to be 4 main areas that the advice links to: core knowledge and its application, practical work and graphs, the mathematical parts of physics, and exam technique. So I've divided this video into the advice for those 4 sections. You need good core knowledge. You need to be able to show a good understanding from across all the topics, and they want to see some detail, some specific detail and depth in your answers. You don't need to write loads. Being concise is good, but the advice is clearly do some revision, know your core knowledge, and be ready to apply it in different situations. For the mathematical bits, triangles are great, but you're going to need to show the equation that you're actually using and show you're working out. It's important that you can use your calculator properly, and that's for doing things like handling those powers of 10. It's really important that you're also thinking about the subscripts in the equations, that equations like the gases equation and the transformers equation, for example. The advice includes things like writing your numbers carefully enough that they can actually be read by the marking people, and the idea of rounding, using SI prefixes. All of this is important for those mathematical marks. There was quite a lot of repetition in the advice about the practical parts, but a lot of what it was saying was about being specific. If you're going to measure something, talk about how you're going to measure it and what you're measuring it with, and putting yourself in the position as though somebody has got to be able to recreate the experiment from reading what you've written in that exam. When it comes to the graphs, there was a lot about lines of best fit, drawing a curve that best fits the pattern of the results, one smooth curve, and plotting very accurately. You might say the last point here is exam technique, but that's what we're moving on to now. As I was copying and pasting the examiner tips onto these final slides, I think I nag about quite a lot of these already, but this is what was picked out from the 2018 exams. So, look at the marks available, stay focused on what you're supposed to be answering, make sure that you are careful adding to diagrams and use diagrams when they'll help you. Use the information from the question in your answer and practice. Use your past papers to practice. In this video, I've tried really hard not to just read you the things I've copied and pasted. However, I do hope you've managed to note some useful tips that might help you improve and you found the video useful. I do just want to focus on what successful candidates were doing this year to finish. They knew their core knowledge, they'd revised. They had engaged during practical work and no doubt revised that too. They were confident in the way they dealt with their maths. They'd remembered their equations, they could rearrange them, and they were ready for all those little mathematical things like standard form. They focused on what the question was asking and the marks available for the difference between describing and explaining. But they were also able to apply their knowledge in different situations, and that comes from practice, practice, practice. It might not be the most exciting YouTube video, but there is a lot of good advice from the examiners here. I hope you found it useful because you know that. Regular review gets a better grade for you. Regular review gets a better grade for you.